Tonight, the federal government urges Australians to get on to the final repatriation flight out of Lebanon. Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. This is ABC News. Take you inside Lebanon's fourth largest city, now almost deserted as Israel expands its strikes. A new program to tackle the rising number of Indigenous women in New South Wales prisons. And a remarkable comeback by Erebus Motorsport in the fastest ever Bathurst 1000. Australians still in Lebanon are being told today could be their last chance to leave the war zone. Back home, tension over the conflict in the Middle East is also continuing to spill over. The opposition now appears to be at odds with the United States on how to reach a ceasefire deal. Here's political reporter Stephanie Dalzell.
The patriarch for peace. The spiritual leader of the world's Eastern Orthodox community in Melbourne and calling for unity, lauded by the Prime Minister.
You have worked for a peaceful coexistence of all people.
But achieving that in the Middle East remains out of grasp for world leaders a year on from the October 7 Hamas terror attacks.
We have got to reach a ceasefire, both as it relates to what's happening in Lebanon and, of course, Gaza. We are working around the clock in that regard.
The opposition in Australia has declared it would only support a ceasefire under a list of conditions, including the release of Israeli hostages and the degradation and defeat of Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The latter point going beyond calls from leaders of the G7 and the United States.
It wouldn't be remarkable for an Australian politician to disagree with an American politician, particularly the United States administration under President Biden and Vice President Harris is a centre-left administration. I'm from a centre-right political party.
The opposition has been accusing the government of being at odds with Australia's allies on Israel. But Foreign Minister Penny Wong now seeking to turn the tables, releasing a statement saying the opposition leader Peter Dutton was so focused on dividing Australians over this conflict, he doesn't realise how isolated his position is.
If you're really focused on looking for an argument, then you lose sight of the national interest.
As the conflict expands within Lebanon, 2,700 Australians in the country have been helped to leave by the government. Just over 50% of seats across 16 government-assisted departure flights have been filled. The government warning flights leaving today may be the last.
We'll continue working with families and they should keep in touch with the Australian government if they need more information, if they need assistance.
As the conflict in the Middle East broadens, so too does the political divide here in Australia. While the government tries to hold the middle ground, the coalition has taken a much firmer line in support of Israel. But it will take more than rhetoric to solve this conflict, which continues to claim the lives of thousands of innocent civilians. Stephanie Dalzell, ABC News, Canberra.
Israel is expanding its strikes in Lebanon, hitting new areas and killing at least 2 people in a town north of the capital, Beirut. The IDF has released these images of what it says show the bombing of Hezbollah targets in the south of the country. It's warning residents in 24 villages south of the Awali River to evacuate their homes. The army has been condemned internationally after acknowledging hitting a United Nations base in the area last week. And a 5th peacekeeper was injured in fighting overnight. Less than half an hour away is Tyre, one of Lebanon's largest cities, which is now a virtual ghost town after nearly a month of heavy fighting. The ABC's Middle East correspondent Eric Torchek is there and sent this report.
There are few cars on the streets of Tyre, and it's clear why. The impacts of war are hard to miss. The municipality says 75% of residents have left. This is why the city is practically empty. 5 people were killed here, and it's just one of a number of strikes around Tyre. But conditions are so bad for displaced Lebanese elsewhere in the country, the city council says some families are coming back. Hezbollah is controlling our movements around the city. They've let us film the port where fishermen have been prohibited from going to sea by the Israeli Navy. Some have been forced to move because of Israeli bombing.
When it comes to my family, yes, I'm very scared for their safety. Everything is different to me. War changes everything.
The local government is providing aid to thousands of people displaced from villages in the south, but says it can't keep up with demand.
We haven't enough resources for all families that living here now.
Tyre's famous beaches are also empty, but Israeli planes are in the sky, bombing the mountains around the city.
You can see a recent airstrike. The smoke rising from the mountains between here and the border. There's been a number of them, fairly consistent throughout the morning. We don't know exactly what's being targeted, but it suggests that Israel's activity is continuing. They've been bombing this area for a number of months, but what we've seen of the villages there has been scenes of absolute destruction, intensive damage, and it looks like it's going to continue.
Residents say, in some cases, Israel's offensive has flattened whole villages.
We were just checking the damage of Ter Harfa yesterday. It's completely destroyed, completely.
A storage of gear waiting for Hezbollah's Radwan forces.
Israel's military says its strikes and raids are targeted at Hezbollah weapons and infrastructure, but the Lebanese say it's destroying communities and livelihoods.
If nothing changes, really, when nobody intervened to stop Israel, they will do the same scenario of Gaza.
A dire prediction from a city under fire. Eric Twarchek, ABC News, Tyre.
Meanwhile, back in Australia, thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters have again rallied, demanding a ceasefire and freedom for Palestinians. Demonstrations were held today in Sydney and Melbourne, and Brisbane saw its biggest protest yet.
Anger and despair spills onto Brisbane streets. Pro-Palestine demonstrators of all ages marched through the CBD, demanding an end to the bloodshed as the death toll rises in Gaza and now Lebanon.
I sympathise and empathise with the people from Gaza and the West Bank and Palestine.
A surprise attack from Hamas terrorists in Israel on October 7 last year killed 1,200 people. 250 more were taken hostage. An Israeli offensive against Hamas followed, which has also killed more than 42,000 Palestinians and levelled Gaza.
People are still dying on the ground every day.
Many of these protesters say their calls have been falling on deaf ears and they've had enough. They're demanding the federal government take stronger action and sanction the Israeli government.
And to stop any arms trading with Israel.
Police kept a watchful eye. The protest ended outside the ABC's Brisbane headquarters at South Bank. No arrests were made. Their calls echoed in Sydney.
We haven't seen yet enough response from the Australian government to do what they're supposed to do.
This is a humanitarian crisis.
And in Melbourne, protesters held their 52nd rally. No signs of stopping as the war rages on. Kira Jones, ABC News, Brisbane.
Some live music restrictions in licensed venues could soon be scrapped in a bid to revive the state's nightlife. Under current law, local councils can issue no entertainment clauses to bars, pubs and restaurants, preventing them from booking live acts. Councils can currently also stipulate the genre of music or the number of performers allowed in a venue. The government says it'll introduce legislation to repeal those rules before the end of the year. The changes will be part of the second round of the government's vibrancy reforms.
We want more entertainment in our venues. Every time a council says no to entertainment, they're saying yes to pokies, yes to alcohol.
First Nations women make up more than a third of all female prisoners in New South Wales. Despite the government's closing the gap targets, the numbers are continuing to rise. But a new program is trying to curb that trend, helping them get full-time work and stop them from going back.
Coming out now.
This can be a dusty and demanding job, but after 10 years in and out of prison, it's been a lifesaver for Cindy Dumbrell.
Went down the wrong path. Addiction, homelessness, struggled to get myself out of there. Come to a point where I nearly lost my life.
A near-fatal overdose changed everything for the mother of 6.
Just getting that message from one of my children saying, "Mum, is it true? I heard you're dead." I was like, what am I doing, you know? They come and tip all the demolition waste, which gets sorted in the plant.
Today, she's rising through the ranks at Australia's largest recycling centre. It's part of Jerwa's Revive Prison Release program, a joint venture between Bingo Industries and Yalligan, an Indigenous training and recruitment company.
We go out to host employers and we ask them to simply offer them an opportunity to go and work on their sites, give them a safe environment to work at, and treat them as any of their employees. Because for majority of these candidates, it's a very hard transition.
The challenges in this program is loneliness on the weekends, trying to develop new hobbies and activities that are cheap enough to sustain but fun. So people come here through the Revive program to start a whole new life.
As of March, there were 349 Aboriginal women in New South Wales prisons. That's up 11.5% from 2 years ago and accounts for more than a third of all of the state's female prisoners.
While the program is still in its infancy, it's clear to see its success so far. But for the program to truly grow, it needs more employers to take on more candidates.
I want all the other tier ones in this space to have a look at what we're doing and repeat it, you know, because there's so many people out there that could benefit from this opportunity.
I love it here at Bingo. The support is awesome. If you want it that bad, you won't give up.
Hoping to bring about change from the inside out. Nakari Thorpe, ABC News, Sydney.
With only a few weeks to go until the US election, both sides of politics are furiously targeting the small group of battleground states where the outcome will be decided. Arizona could prove critical to whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump takes the White House. But people there are not just voting for the president. They're also deciding the future of reproductive rights in their state, in what's become one of the defining issues of the campaign. North America correspondent Jade McMillan reports from Phoenix, Arizona.
At her small abortion clinic on the outskirts of Phoenix, Dr. Deshawn Taylor has experienced a tumultuous few years.
Hello there.
When the US Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, it ended the nationwide right to abortion, meaning states could set their own rules. In Arizona, that led to a fight over whether to reinstate a near-total ban, first introduced in 1864.
Abortion has become a partisan issue. And again, it's healthcare. Republicans have abortions, libertarians have abortions, Democrats have abortions. Because why? It is a medical procedure.
The 160-year-old law was eventually repealed, and abortion is now legal in Arizona until 15 weeks of pregnancy. But when people here vote in the presidential election, they'll also be asked whether to change their state constitution to enshrine abortion rights up until at least 24 weeks.
Shout out for yesterday, you guys hit 1,689 doors. Above our goal. Good job, guys.
Leslie Chavez is helping to lead a door-knocking campaign in support of the ballot measure.
Tristan, Samaria, and Olga.
She was raised in a religious household and decided against having an abortion when she became pregnant as a teenager. But her views on the topic have shifted over time.
Me personally, I'm against abortion for myself. But I don't want to take that right from anybody. And then I don't know what's going to happen in the future. What if I do have to, or what if it's too hard for me and that's going to be my route, you know? Like, why take that right away from anybody?
Hi, good morning. My name is Katarina White. If it's possible, we would love to come to your church this weekend.
Across town, Katarina White is trying to encourage votes against the abortion amendment by reaching out to local churches.
My parents all raised us Catholic, and ever since I understood how human life begins, my dad, also paired that conversation with why we disagree with abortion. I think I was like 14.
Kamala Harris has made reproductive rights a major focus of her bid for the White House, while criticising Donald Trump's role in the fall of Roe v. Wade.
He hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court to do exactly what they did, take away the right of an individual to make decisions about their own body.
The former president claims credit for the Supreme Court's ruling, but he's tried to distance himself from some of the strictest abortion laws around the country.
I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart, but you have to get elected also.
It's a position that has upset some in the anti-abortion movement, like Katarina White, although she still plans to vote for him.
That has been kind of hard for me to stomach. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to say things that I think would be the most politically advantageous. But Kamala Harris, she's the face of Planned Parenthood right now.
For all of the focus on abortion in Arizona, there are several big election issues colliding here. Rapid population growth in cities like Phoenix has added to cost of living pressures. And this is a border state. Head south from here and you'll eventually reach the US boundary with Mexico. And that makes immigration policy front and centre. Christina Jung campaigns for the former president as part of his Latino Americans for Trump group. She moved here from Colombia in the 1960s, but is angry at the number of people who've crossed the southern border without authorization since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came to power.
We need to close the border. We need to continue building the wall.
She also rejects the notion that American women would be better off under their potential first ever female president as opposed to Donald Trump.
They want to make him like, this bad man. No. He is a man, a human being, and he's not perfect. I don't think that there is a perfect human being in the world that you can talk about. But he is the man that we need at this moment.
I think he's really smart financially. He would help us out financially. But as far as helping us out, I think he's racist and he absolutely hates women. He's made it very clear.
A deep split in a state that could have an outsized say on the election result. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Phoenix, Arizona.
And the latest polls show Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are neck and neck as the race for the White House enters its final few weeks. The candidates have been on the campaign trail trading barbs on health and immigration. On Saturday, Kamala Harris released a letter from her doctor pronouncing her in good health and fit for high office. And she wants Mr. Trump to do the same. Meanwhile, speaking in California, her opponent blamed Ms. Harris for the country's migrant crisis, saying she's the worst vice president in the history of the country. 4 people, including 2 children, have died in a massive blast at a fuel station in the Chechen capital, Grozny. Footage posted to social media shows one of the tanks narrowly missing people on the ground. The leader of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, says those responsible will be brought to justice. Explosions at fuel stations in neighbouring regions have killed 48 people in the last 2 years alone. A large-scale study has uncovered human rights violations at an abandoned gold and copper mine in Bougainville in PNG. Landowners want the mining giant Rio Tinto to fix the issues more than 3 decades after the mine closed. Papua New Guinea correspondent Marion Farr has this report.
At its peak, Panguna was one of the world's most profitable gold and copper mines. But it closed suddenly in 1989 at the beginning of a devastating civil war that would claim up to 15,000 lives. Now it lies in ruins, and locals have been left to deal with the mess.
It is not a matter that you can easily brush it aside or put a band-aid over it.
But the true extent of the damage is only now being revealed in an independent assessment of social and environmental impacts. It follows a human rights complaint by members of the community against Rio Tinto, which held a 53% stake in Panguna until 2016. Results from the study were presented to communities for the first time this week.
This work didn't just happen. It is a result of our cries.
It found parts of the mine pit, roads, a levee and old buildings were at high or extreme risk of collapsing, potentially causing death. There were also risks associated with toxic chemicals in the soil, metals in the water and flooding.
I never had this, information before, and so I didn't think that, it was that severe.
The study found violations of people's rights to water, education and culture, and potential or possible violations of their rights to health, adequate food, housing and standard of living.
It is now time for Rio Tinto to come out public and make its commitment known to the people.
This pain is still with us. So this process now, the way I see it, things will be resolved. It will really resolve our pain.
Rio Tinto has not responded to the ABC's questions, but in a statement on its website, the company says it's committed to engaging with all parties on the next steps. And in August, it signed an MOU to address some, but not all, of the ageing infrastructure. Residents in Bougainville want a much stronger commitment to fixing the problems they've been living with for decades. Marion Farr, ABC News, Port Moresby.
The former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, has died unexpectedly in Macedonia. The 69-year-old is believed to have suffered a heart attack just after he'd finished speaking at an international conference. Mr Salmond is largely credited with bringing Scotland the closest it's ever been to independence from the rest of the United Kingdom. But in the 2014 referendum, Scottish voters backed remaining in the UK 55% to 44%.
He took the Scottish National Party from the fringes of Scottish politics to become the government of Scotland, and he took Scotland incredibly close to becoming independent. He has made a huge contribution to the public life of Scotland over his life.
There's a new King of the Mountain. Brodie Kostecki has won the Bathurst 1000. A display of precise, skillful driving kept the great race running smoothly. And for the first time ever, it was done and dusted in under 6 hours.
What is the mood of the mountain today?
The opening proceedings at Mount Panorama were fast but civilised.
A lot of courtesy being shown out there at the moment.
Pole driver and last year's runner-up Brodie Kostecki set the pace early with Brock Feeney on his tail. But the 26-year-old from Perth was in full control.
Brodie has done a tremendous job again. Has not put a foot wrong.
The lapped cars were rubbing the leaders the wrong way.
He just looked disgraced.
And there were some minor mishaps.
A little hook tie, there's a door open there.
On the treacherous course, it was a quiet day for the safety car.
If you had said to me on Thursday or Friday, 104 laps into the race, we would have gone green the whole way, I would have said you're crazy.
And wiped it on the wall.
Until Matt Payne came unstuck at the cutting.
The safety car finally arrives on lap 132.
Kostecki and Feeney were bunched back together, and it turned into an arm wrestle between the two young drivers.
Absolutely exquisite driving by both of them.
It was a thrilling chase for 193,000 fans, but Kostecki's willpower never budged.
Brodie Kostecki is the king of the mountain.
I just can't believe it. I'm just in awe at the moment.
Woo! Bathurst winners.
A maiden Bathurst victory for Kostecki, lasting 5 hours, 58 minutes and 3 seconds. It was the fastest ever great race in its 61-year history. Bindi Bryce, ABC News.
North Melbourne's unbeaten run in the AFLW has continued with a 10-goal victory over Sydney in Hobart. In other matches, Melbourne recorded a 14-point win against St Kilda. Adelaide had no problems down in Greater Western Sydney. And last night, the Blues snuck home in the dying seconds against Fremantle.
If the Swans were daunted by the challenge ahead of them, they didn't show it.
And kicks another! 3 goals apiece!
But it didn't take long before the undefeated Roos found another gear to get out to a 20-point lead at half-time.
Jazzy gathers and will set it up beautifully.
And their control of the ball from one end of the ground to the other continued into the second half.
O'Loughlin with the greatest of ease.
Erica O'Shea's rolled ankle was the only sore point of the afternoon as the side cruised to a 10-goal win. At Moorabbin, midfielder Liv Purcell was sporting a face mask in her return from a facial injury. And with their season on a knife's edge, the Demons came out firing. A 3-goal haul by Jessie Wardlaw gave the Saints a lift.
And crafts an absolute beauty, Jessie.
But the Demons were too strong, running out 14-point winners.
Zanka, left foot is brilliant.
And keeping their season alive. The Crows got themselves back on the winners list and into the top 4 against GWS.
It's all the way for Chelsea Randall.
A final quarter demolition at Henson Park, handing the Giants their biggest loss of the year so far. Last night in Perth.
Is it going through? Oh, it's a miracle!
Carlton's Keely Shearer with a snap in the final minute to curb Fremantle's ambitions of a top 4 finish.
I'm confident we'll turn around, but obviously we want it to burn as well. We're not here to lose games, and losing that one today hurt.
The Dockers next face the Eagles in the Derby on Saturday. Erin Marsicovetere, ABC News.
The Wallaroos have officially qualified for the Women's World Cup after beating Scotland to win the WXV2 tournament in Cape Town. The Australian side jumped out to a 21-point lead midway through the first half. Desiree Miller, Maya Stewart and Cecilia Smith all crossed the line. The reigning champions quickly returned fire, closing the gap and regaining the lead with just 11 minutes to spare. Scotland was reduced to just 13 players in the closing stages of the game. The Wallaroos then capitalised. Milestone player Ash Masters scored in the 80th minute to claim the win, 31 to 22 points, giving the Wallaroos their first major piece of silverware.
So proud. We've had a bit of a tough start to the year, but they've stuck in, we've kept building and we're growing every single week. So really proud of them and the efforts they've put in and can't wait to see how much further it goes.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Mostly sunny skies in Sydney today with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Overnight lows were in the mid-teens. They hit 22 in the city, right on the average for October today, and it was dry throughout. Overnight lows were close to average across the east and north and generally cooler elsewhere, especially near the Victorian border and on higher ground. Our daytime peaks were generally below average, due in part to cooler south to southeasterly winds across many districts. The satellite picture shows a large area of clouds spanning the state's north and interior with a trough, but it's bringing virtually no rain at this stage. However, there are a few showers in the state's northeast with some onshore winds, and those showers become a little more expansive in the next 24 hours, and by Tuesday, there's a possibility of light showers in every forecast district of New South Wales. Tomorrow, it'll be a wet day in Perth, Melbourne, Canberra and possibly Hobart, and in Adelaide and Brisbane, it'll be partly cloudy. Partly cloudy skies in the state's northeast tomorrow, with showers in the Hunter extending up into the mid-north coast and adjacent tablelands. Showers too across the Illawarra and south coast, extending onto the central and southern tablelands, which may also see some thunderstorms. You may see some hail and locally heavy rain in parts, with possible light showers in the far west. Winds will be northeasterly to northwesterly, fresh along the coast before a southerly change hits. Clear skies over Sydney tonight, turning cloudy tomorrow. There is a high chance of showers, most likely in the afternoon and evening with a possible thunderstorm. Overnight lows between 9 and 13. We'll see tops in the mid-20s. The sun will rise at 6:14 a.m. and sunset is for 7:09. The showers and cloudy skies set in for a few days after tomorrow, though any rainfall is expected to be light. Tops generally peaking in the mid to high 20s. And that is the very latest from the ABC News team. From all of us, thanks for your company. Enjoy the rest of your evening.